Hey there, and welcome to the Office of the IT Guy, the show where we celebrate the people and talk about the technology that's changing our world. I am your host, Eric the IT Guy Hendricks, and my mission here is to share a love for open source and help build a stronger community. I'm so thankful that you tuned in because the office is now open. Hey there, and welcome to the Office of the IT Guy, Episode 1. I am your host, apparently, Eric the IT Guy Hendricks. It is great to see you all here. I'm really excited to kick this off. Any of you that know me know that I've been part of Linux Unplugged, part of the Ask Noah show, then the Sudo show, and a little bit of everything else, and then took some time off from the Sudo show to do Rel Presents and Into the Terminal with Red Hat. So, I've kind of been all over the place, but I'm really excited to kind of just sit back and hang out with y'all, kind of do my own thing a little bit. So first off, I hope you love the intros and the graphics. Thank you to Hive, Hive Agency. They do a lot of graphic design, a lot of marketing work out there. If you're familiar with like System 76 marketing and some other companies, they are very, very active. They graciously helped me get all that put together. It looks awesome. It feels awesome. I'm really excited about it. So with that being said, today we've got an awesome episode. I keep saying awesome, but I'm excited. We've been talking about this for months now, and then everything got put on hold with this little thing called Red Hat Summit and then Red Hat Enterprise Linux 9. So now here we are, finally, Office of the IT Guy. So thank you all for joining me. I'm really excited. See a couple of folks in chat already. So bear with me. This is a new show where I'm going to try and get things kind of integrated and put together. But to do that, I need a platform to build all of this out of. And as you all know, I love open source. I believe that open source is the way to build technology and the way to build community. So I can't think of any better way, any better place to look for that platform, any better idea to look for building a community than Element. Element and the Matrix protocol Brandon and I in the Sudo show, we took a chance and we started building out a community on the matrix.org instance using Element as the front end, and it worked out great. So with this show, we're going to follow in those footsteps. So I can't think of anybody better to talk to about Element and Matrix than a friend of mine, Karl Abbot. He is a product manager over at Element. So with that being said, let's give a warm Office the IT Guy welcome to Karl Abbot.
Thank
Karl,
you for having me on, Eric.
I almost said the Sudo show. Could you
Yeah,
tell I
yeah.
kind of stumbled there?
No, my name is Karl Abbot. I am a product manager at Element. I've been there for a little over 4 months now. Previously, I worked with Eric at Red Hat, so that's how we got to know each other. And yeah, he's right. We've been talking about this for months. We've been talking about Element on a podcast of his own for quite some time, and it's definitely a topic that I'm quite passionate about. I mean, it's why I left a great company like Red Hat to go work at a place like Element, is because I think there's a lot of exciting stuff that Element is doing. I find the Matrix protocol and the promise of Matrix to be something that deeply aligns with my own ethos, and so it's good stuff. Happy to be here on the show.
Yeah, thank you first off for your patience, because this has been a while in the making, and we were going to do this in April, and it's just like, nope, I can't. I've got like 3 summit sessions and a major release coming up. It's like So first off, thank you so much for your patience. Second of all, thank you for being my guest today for our inaugural episode of Into the Terminal.
That's a different show.
That is a completely different show, completely different topic. But
I just got out of the terminal to come on here, but yeah.
Oh, it's been a day, let me tell you. But yeah, we had some fun on Into the Terminal this morning. We had some terminal issues during Into the Terminal, so I think that's why that's on my brain. But thank you for helping me kick off the Office of the IT Guy series. So with that said, you kind of mentioned that you were a former Red Hatter. And based on your work history, you've been in IT pretty much your entire career, and very much focused on open source. So I gotta kind of ask, for those that don't know you, what drew you to open source in the first place?
Ooh, man, that's been so long ago. You're asking me to remember something that's almost 20 years ago at this point. I was a college student, like all of us have probably been at some point, or maybe not. Maybe you're going to be a college student, but basically, I was there, and it was kind of the late 90s, early 2000s, and software was generally proprietary, which meant that unless you were willing to steal it off the internet, it was hard to come by. You had to pay for it, and college students don't have a lot of money. And I had seen and heard a lot about this thing called Linux, which was a completely free operating system with all this free software. And it's like, well, that actually sounds really cool. I was in the computer science program down at University of Southern Mississippi, and I only had a dial-up modem at the time. I didn't quite have cable, and it's like the idea of downloading these big ISOs was rather daunting. So I went ahead and bought SUSE Linux 7.2 box set and got the DVD sent to me, and I got started with it. And that began a very long period of playing around with Linux and seeing all the cool stuff you could do with it, getting things like CD burners to work, because that was a hard thing at first, and just getting all the drivers and this and that to get loaded up. And yeah, I mean, it ballooned from there.
Yeah, I can relate. My early days in Linux were trying out this Ubuntu thing. Um, that was pretty cool, and then I found this other thing that was kind of similar to what I was taking classes in. A lot of the classes I had were based on Red Hat Linux at the time,
Mhm.
and some folks may remember back before Fedora Linux was a thing, how it was Fedora Core. Uh, yeah, Fedora. Yeah, it was
Yeah, it was Fedora
Fedora
Core.
Core. I think Fedora Core 4. I think might have been the first one
Okay.
I tried using, and wireless adapters were the bane of every nerd's existence back in those days. But
Yeah,
we've
I can
we've definitely
remember
come a
sitting
long way.
down, PCMCIA card in the slot,
Oh,
source code, working on compiling the kernel module to get that thing to load, then get on the Wi-Fi. And it was like 802.11b or something.
all right.
So yeah,
But
that's a long time
we've
ago.
we've come a long way, and I kind of one of the funny things about finding Element, and we'll get into this a little bit later when we talk about bridging, was one of my favorite applications back in the early days of getting started with Linux and open source was Pigeon. The
Hmm.
Pigeon was amazing for someone like me who's on just about every social media and instant messaging platform since like the day that I got my own laptop, and up till now I'm everywhere. And so Pigeon was amazing because you could take your AIM, your AOL Instant Messenger,
Yep.
and IRC, and you could just bridge all these things into a single application.
ICQ.
ICQ, yep.
Yeah.
And it was so nice to have all those in
MSN,
one.
Yahoo, all
Oh
those
my gosh,
old
I had them
protocols
all.
at this point. Yeah, I had something on most all of those as well. And it was nice to be able to have one application that you signed in and it connected you to all these services, and then you could go talk to all the people on the different services.
Yeah, it was
And it
so
more or
great.
less worked.
It really did. Considering what technology was like, 15, 20 years ago, it's amazing that it worked.
It wasn't
But
that much different. It just had different names, different version numbers.
right, that's all
It's all
pretty
the
much the
same
same
stuff. We're
protocol,
still just
right?
trying to talk over computers. And
So you started out with Linux. You got a computer science major. You spent a long time at Red Hat, and so what was it about Element and Matrix? I mean, how did that transition happen?
yeah, so I'll tell this story. This is a fun story. If you're listening out there, Ben Briard, I am going to call, tell a story real quick. I joined the Red Hat Enterprise Linux product management team back now in 2019, summer of 19, kind of that spring. And then that summer we had an on-site. And I had just come out of technical account management, in which I was using a Mac. And Ben gave me a lot of crap about using a Mac as a product manager for Red Hat Enterprise Linux. I was like, all right, fine, fine. I'll go back to Linux. I'll put Linux on my Mac and I'll figure it out. But I was very deeply embedded in the iMessage ecosystem at the time.
Hmm.
I appreciate the end-to-end encrypted aspect of iMessage and the fact that I could use iMessage on my Mac, I could use it on my phone, I could pretty much use it anywhere that I needed to, and that meant that I could talk to people if I'm on my computer. You know, in this regard, I'm very old school. I like my hard keyboard on my desk as opposed to the soft keyboard on my phone. That thing drives me nuts, but give me a real keyboard and we're good. So being able to actually talk over the computer on this network was fascinating. It was great. So it's like, okay, well, in Linux you can't connect to iMessage. You know, that's a mind blown problem. You just
Right.
can't do that. So what am I going to do? Well, I need something that's end-to-end encrypted because I don't want to be just talking out in plain text. I do want that type of protection. And as a result, you know, it's like, okay, let me go look at my options. And Signal was a very obvious option. So I tried Signal at first and I brought Signal on. The problem with Signal at the time was that it would disconnect the phone and the client application would disconnect every 2 to 3 days and you'd have to go back through the repairing process. And I'm like, I'm not going to repair my phone to my computer every couple of days just to be able to
Right.
chat. Yeah, this is really ridiculous, especially since I don't think it notified you that that was the problem. It's just you went to go use it and it's like, hey, I'm disconnected now.
Hmm.
And so you'd miss messages. And it was just like, this is a terrible experience. I can't deal with this. And I had previously seen matrix.org. And I thought, well, that sounds really cool, but how do you get started with Matrix? Because it wasn't super clear from the website. I mean, it's like, oh, well, there's all these different clients and everything can talk Matrix, and you can just, you just need a Matrix enabled client. And you go get an ID, and it's like, okay, that sounds a little bit much. So that's why I went to Signal first, and then I went back and I said, okay, I'm going to figure this Matrix thing out. At the time, the client was called Riot.im. It
Yep.
was not Element yet. And things like cross signing that a lot of people, myself included, at this point take for granted today just did not exist. So this was fun. I said, okay, this is actually going to work because I can run this thing in a container on my computer. Basically, what's now Element Web. I was able to run it in a container, and so I could get I had my end-to-end encryption over the Matrix communications protocol, and I had my phone able to be connected with the mobile app. And basically, I'm like, yeah, this is great, except every single time you log into something, it's a device in the Matrix ecosystem, and that still holds true today. But oh yeah, absolutely, Indus Wrapper was a godsend. That made things much much easier. But you've got everything as a device, but before cross signing, you had to verify every single one of those devices. So,
Right.
like got on, the moment that I brought my mobile phone into the picture, I had to say, my mobile phone is good. Because I use this to talk to my wife and I wanted an encrypted room with her, she also needed to say, yes, Carl's mobile phone is good. Yes, Carl's web browser is good. Yes, my wife's web browser is good. Yes, my wife's phone is good. And we have to both sign all of these devices to then be able to say, okay, we've got a verified end to end encrypted communication channel in place. Now, once you get through the hassle that was, everything worked and it was in place and you didn't touch it, you left it be. Now, with cross signing, it's great because if I add a new device, all I have to do is say, yeah, that's me. I verified that device myself. And then because of the fact that you trust me already, you don't have to verify that new device. We don't have to go through that process. So cross signing brought the barrier to entry way down. But yeah, 2019 was a very different time in the Matrix ecosystem, and things weren't quite as far along as they are now. But that's what got me started down that platform. And the more that I read about Matrix, the more that I read about Element. I watched a couple of the Open Tech Will Save Us at the beginning of the
Mm.
pandemic, kind of early
Hmm.
2020. They kicked off this Open Tech Will Save Us initiative, and they were talking about how really the only way forward, away from basically a world of centralized big tech companies controlling everything about you, is to go into decentralized technology and to have open technology. And so this resonated with me because this is it's definitely been a theme through open source for quite some time. And it's like, yeah, it's not just let's go kill the big guy. It's actually no, the big centralized guy is out there taking all of our data and using it for their advantage at our disadvantage. So there's actually some serious issues there.
Right. Well, and it sounds like you came across Matrix not too much sooner than I did, because it was still Riot at the time,
Hmm.
but cross signing was a thing because I can't imagine because I've got
Yeah.
a MacBook, I've got an X1 Carbon, I've got a custom built workstation, I've got an iPhone, an iPad, I've got all these devices, and even just in a desktop perspective, I jump between Firefox, Chrome, and the installable desktop app. And I remember those early days, right as cross signing was coming out. It was like,
Hmm.
oh, this is terrible because everyone has to approve all like 6 of my devices plus browsers, and it's just
Yes,
like, no,
yes.
this isn't
It was really hard to sell that idea to anybody outside of the non-technical crowd.
right.
It was
But
definitely a barrier to entry.
I mean, now it's great. I verify different devices against an
Hmm.
already signed in device, and it's very easy. It's very straightforward. But we've kind of skirted around this issue,
Yep.
and we've kind of talked about some of the benefits to it. But other than the really awesome Matrix movie, or other than the really awesome movie with Keanu Reeves, what is the Matrix? I figured
Uh,
I'd take that pun away before you could use it.
Yeah, you took that pun from me. Okay, yeah. No, so Matrix is, and this almost sounds marketish, but it is what it is. It's a real-time communications platform, and on that platform, you get what's called a Matrix ID. That Matrix ID is like your email address for real-time communications. What do we mean by real-time communications? Well, what we're doing right now is real-time communications. So there's no reason we couldn't do all these things on Matrix, where we've got people chatting with us. You've got the video, you and me, we're talking. We do actually have a Matrix-based video platform called
Mhm.
Element Call, where everything, the signaling layer, it's all done over Matrix. So I mean, it's WebRTC, but the signaling layer is Matrix, which is really cool. But these are all forms of real-time communications, and that Matrix ID is kind of like the modern email address, because if you know my Matrix ID, you can give me a voice call, you can give me a video call, we can get started in a call like this. You can reach me on matrix.org, you can chat with me right now if you want. I mean, it's you just had it up there, it's at Abbott, KABBOTT:/matrix.org. If you are on Matrix anywhere, any client that you're using, you can go say, hey, I want to chat with this ID, and you can immediately pull that up. And if your client supports video chat, you could give me a video call. Please don't, but you could, and then I'd have a video call right here with you, and it'd be right there. So the Matrix protocol, in and of itself, allows for real-time communications, but so do a lot of other things. There's a lot of platforms out there that allow for real-time communications. So what makes Matrix different? Well, first off, Matrix is an open communications platform based on the Matrix Open Standard. And who says it's a standard? We say it's a standard. We have certainly had discussions around, should we go get a standards body to actually license the Matrix standard and to say, hey, this is an official standard. But the very fact is, if a bunch of people come together and they say, we've made a standard and this is how it's going to work, and everybody then applies by the rules of that standard, well, you've effectively made a de facto standard. So it's a standard, and it is an open standard. And every time I talk about standards, I can't help but think of that XKCD comic where they're like, oh, we've got 15 standards and they're all broken. Let's make a new standard. No, this is a good
3 months
standard.
later,
And
we have
this,
16 standards,
yeah,
and they're all broken.
yes, this
Exactly. I
has
love
a
that one.
lot of momentum behind it. It has a lot of good people involved in it. And we've made a good standard. All right. And then other things that are different is that we're decentralized. That's a really key part of the Matrix communications platform, because unlike platforms like Signal and WhatsApp and Teams and Slack, those are all centralized. And what we mean by centralized is that one entity controls the entire network. So, like, if Slack goes down, Slack is down. There is no way around that. If Signal goes down, Signal's down. There's no way you can talk on Signal until that comes back up. In Matrix, because it is decentralized, if a Matrix server goes down, well, the users on that Matrix server are completely out of luck. They're down. But there's many, many Matrix servers. So other people talking Matrix that aren't talking to the people on this down server are fine, and they can keep talking Matrix. And that's one of the benefits of decentralization. The other benefit of decentralization is that we don't control it. There's no one controlling entity. You can run a matrix.org account that's provided for free by the Matrix Foundation. And you can go out there and get that free matrix.org account right now, today. And you can be up and running. Very super easy to do. In fact, I encourage everybody, if you're not on Matrix already, go do that and then explore and play around and see what it's all about. But if you go, my Matrix Foundation, they're kind of squirrely, I don't like them anymore. stand up your own home server because it's a simple open source piece of software that you can go stand up. Yeah, you've got to maintain it and you've got to have a little bit of sysadmin know-how to do that, but you get the thing set up and you watch the updates and you keep applying the updates when necessary. You can go stand your own home server up and then you control everything. You control like access, you control what it's logging, you control how often it logs, how often it clears logs, all those things that you would want to do, you can do that. So you can become your own chat provider and you can still talk to everybody across the Open Federation on matrix.org or, itguyeric.com. All these different home servers that are out there, you can go talk across that federation. And so that's one of the key things about being decentralized is not only does it mean that not one entity controls it, but it means that anybody can decide how much control they want. And
Mhm.
you can go all the way from the typical user interaction where, okay, I'm on matrix.org and I've got my free account to, I decided I'm going to build my own home server and I'm going to put it up there and I'm going to host my own self on there and I'm going to put all these experimental plugins that may break the whole thing tomorrow. But you know what? I'm having fun and I can do it and I can control it. So decentralization really does bring us that. And yeah, also we talk about federation. Federation is basically just allowing all these servers to talk to each other. And one thing that's really cool about the Matrix protocol is that you can define how much federation you want. So, like if you're a business and you don't want to federate with anybody else, you're just like, we just want a chat server for our business, you can have a completely closed federation where effectively you have maybe you only have one home server. You could do a one home server model where it's just closed and that's it. But you could have multiple home servers for different regions and you could allow them to have federation between them, but not to the greater matrix world. But then you can also, where you get your biggest bang for your buck is when you actually do open up your federation to the greater matrix world, because then you can have parts of your server where with spaces, which is a matrix spec feature that is available through Element, you can actually say only people from my company should have access to the rooms in this space and should have access to the space. So you can carve out your closed federation effectively. And then you can have another space where you actually let like partners and customers come talk to you. So you could actually bring other people in, and this could all happen on the same home server, with users from the same home server.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of ways you can slice and dice that federation. And while a typical business mind is, yeah, let's keep it closed, there are benefits to opening that and then using the security model that's in place to carve out who's going to be allowed to go where.
And then there's crazy people like me that have a little bit of everything. I have a matrix.org ID. I have the Fedora community hosts their own home server. I've got an ID there. I pay the $5 a month or whatever it is for EMS, the
Hmm.
hosted solution for Element, and then I stood up my own home server. So I've got IDs everywhere.
Yeah,
But
I've got two right now. I've got a work one and a personal one, but that's it.
well, and being able to categorize things and put different groups into different spaces really helps me kind of separate out my day. So like I've even got my Google Chat from work
Hmm.
bridged into my own home server. So what's great is I can be talking to people out in the community, talking in some of the different tech chats like hashtag Fedora or hashtag sent to a stream or something like that. But then I can also get notified that, hey, Google Chat just received this message from your boss and he wants to know, why you're screwing around on sent to a stream's IRC instead of, working. That hasn't happened, but it could.
Yep.
But it's really nice because like those days back in Pigeon, I've got all of these bridges set up, and we'll kind of circle back to that here in a minute.
Hmm.
But between because I mean, you went the Signal route, I went the Telegram route because when I started getting involved with the open source community and some of the different podcast communities that were out there, Telegram was all the rage.
Hmm.
And so now today I lean very heavily on my Telegram bridge. I'm in a few different Slack communities. So that's not only can you set up federation and can you set up spaces that are private or public, but you can also, if you're running a home server, you could also set up a number of different bridges. And
Yep.
there's like 12 or 15 different community focused bridges. Um, so do you want to tell us a little bit about those
Yeah, we can
bridges and
talk
then?
about bridges. So EMS one or Element One by EMS, Element Matrix Services. That's actually the team that I work on. So I work with those guys on a regular basis. My job specifically at Element is to work on our on-premise installer and getting a good on-premise story for our enterprise customers, actually. So that's why I'm in EMS, is because EMS is providing the cloud experience, and now we're working on the on-premise experience, and we're working to unify that. Not only for customer benefit to be able to have the same experience, whether you're doing on-prem or you're doing in the cloud, running your home server is really what we're in the business of, but also so that as a company we're doing things one way. We kind of come up with the gold standard of how to build and orchestrate all these services that you would need to do. But you're right, bridging is a very important part of the Matrix ecosystem. We have Element One that you can buy from EMS that has, I think, 3 or 4 bridges, and then if you buy Element Home, you get a few more bridges, and it's all the common networks that you'd expect to see. You've got things on there like you've got Signal, you've got a Telegram bridge. There is a Microsoft Teams bridge, and it seems the Slack bridge is out there, the IRC bridge. There may be one WhatsApp. Yeah, there's a
What's up?
WhatsApp
Yep.
bridge. But there are all these different bridges. And effectively, what a bridge allows you to do is it allows you to identify yourself on the other network and then connect the two. So effectively, if you've got a room on, say, Slack that you want to monitor, because you got to be in the Slack channel because somebody told you, yeah, you need to be in the Slack channel. You can create a matrix room, and you can then bridge that Slack channel into that matrix room. And effectively, at that point, you can sit there and type all day long in that matrix room, and people on Slack see those messages as if you were on Slack. And if you've got more people that need to be in that Slack room, you can just invite them to the same matrix room, and you only have to have the bridge across once, and then they can participate from there. And the bridge does all this really cool translation work. Same story with Signal. I mean, you can immediately connect your Signal account, and then you just tell it what phone number you want to message. And before you know it, you've got a matrix room that's with that person on Signal. And so you can sit there and talk to somebody. So they're sitting there in their Signal client, and you're sitting there in your Element client, and you're talking to them and they're talking to you, and nobody's really the wiser there. I mean, there's a few little interface details that tell you, yeah, this person's bridged, but
Right.
outside of a few little things like that, yeah, I mean, it really does bring it all into one interface, so that really at the end of the day, you're looking at this interface that's got all this great stuff in it. It's got all this connectivity to all these different chat platforms, and that's really exciting. I mean, it's a bridge, which is literally what it is. But
Right.
it is a bridge between this world where everybody's on 100 different chat platforms and a world where everybody is on one. Where everybody is on one centralized standard, like Matrix,
Hmm.
and then everything talks Matrix. Because realistically, there's no reason WhatsApp couldn't talk Matrix. There's no
Right.
reason Signal couldn't talk Matrix. There's no reason that these other platforms couldn't speak it. It is an open standard, and they could build their own, customizations, reasons you should use our platform as opposed to everybody else's. You can do all that. You can still have differentiation on top, but there is an open standard in Matrix to be able to allow for real-time communication. So if everybody uses that as a mechanism that they can talk, then we kind of get out of this idea that, okay, I'm going to go build a silo, and I'm going to get everybody into my silo, and only my silo is going to win. And anybody who doesn't want to talk on my silo by my rules, well, and that's what happens when you've got this whole centralized world. I mean, people are really quick to go to the silo model because the silo model has shown in a lot of places where that's been applied that you can really get to a point where you have network effect and you build up very fast, and you get, once you get network effect, that's the scenario wherein I get on this thing and I say, hey, Eric, this is really cool. You need to join. And then you go tell 20 of your friends and they join. And, before you know it, the whole thing's ballooning and everybody's joining your platform. That's when you start making a lot of money, because you can turn around and tell your investors, look at how big our platform's growing. It's up and to the right, and it is just astronomical growth. Look at this network effect taking off. But the dangers of that is that all of a sudden, there is this one entity, this one nexus of control, and that if you're in that nexus of control, you can't talk to the people that are in some other silo. I mean, if I'm on WhatsApp, I can't talk to people on Signal. If I'm on Signal, I can't talk to people on Telegram. But if I'm on Matrix, I can talk to anybody on Matrix. And that means I could be on Element, I could be on Fluffy Chat, I could be on all these different clients that are in the Matrix ecosystem. I could be on my own server, I could be on Eric's server, I could be on the Matrix server, I could be on all these different servers, and I can talk to people without having to deal with that. So the bridges are a great spot for where we are today.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, they kind of encumber where we want to be, which is everybody on a matrix enabled client. Because once everybody talks this open standard across the board, then it doesn't really matter what service we're going with, what client we're using. We're all able to speak to each other. And that really is kind of the goal of Matrix, is to have that as basically just this communications fabric that everybody uses.
So we actually had a comment in chat about how awesome bridges are, especially for communities, because you get that, you start to get that network effect. But in fact, the comment was that the first time that they ever had an IRC user answering a Slack user's question over a room that was bridged across multiple platforms was just mind blowing. And
Yes, it
so, I
is.
mean,
Because you don't
considering
even
that,
have to be on Matrix for that glue to work. Because if you
right?
glue all these rooms in through the same place in Matrix, you can be over on IRC and respond to the person on Slack and have no idea you just did that.
Well, and to me that is the salvation for some of my older sysadmin friends that
Hmm.
live and die by IRC. That we will take their IRC handle out of their cold dead fingers. I mean, they are that married to IRC. It's like we
We
finally
are a
have
company of IRC lovers. I
right.
mean, all the people, our founders, everybody who's in the management ranks, they all grew up with IRC and they all love IRC. We want to be the evolution of IRC, and we think we've achieved that. But yeah, there's a lot of IRC love within Element and Matrix.
Yeah, I mean, since I stood up my home server just a few weeks ago, I haven't been more active on IRC in years than I have been the last few weeks. So I can definitely relate to that.
Yeah, there's a Silver Blue channel on Matrix. I'm not sure if it's wired into IRC or not. If it is, I've been chatting on IRC a decent bit lately, but I have no idea where these people are coming from. They're in the
Right.
Silver Blue room on Matrix. I haven't dug in to see how is this thing wired. Is it connected to anything else? Silverblue:fedoraproject.org, and you know, yeah,
I think all the fedoraproject.org rooms are matrix rooms that have then had like IRC rooms bridged
yeah.
in.
Yeah, I kind of wondered if they didn't have an IRC bridge. I do think I do recall something about a rule on like the IRC bridge there that if you're not active for 30 days, they'll kick you
Hmm.
off or something, and then you like
Right.
lose half the room or something. It's like, okay, I'll make sure I type something every few days in this room so I
Right.
don't get kicked. But that's a cool thing too. I mean, like, we're sitting here, we're talking about all these different ways you can use it. We're talking about all these different bridges. You know, Element, the client. Let's talk about just kind of how this looks like from a client perspective, because it's great to geek out on the server technology and what all's under the hood and what's available. But
Right.
from a client perspective, Element looks very similar to a chat client like Slack. To be frank, there's a lot of similarities in the interface there. There are some differences, but by and large, if you've used Slack before, you pop into Element, you're going to kind of recognize what's going on. On the left, you've got your spaces and you've got your rooms and all these different things that you can organize all your stuff with. And then kind of in the middle, you've got your chat, and there's a little panel you can pull up on the right-hand side that shows you who's in a room, what widgets are in a room, what widgets are available, files that have been sent. There's a whole lot of different things that you can get there. But one thing that's really exciting about Element and Matrix as an ecosystem is, again, because it is basically plumbing and tooling to be able to talk to anybody, anywhere. You can sit there and have all these open source communities all day long, and you can be in these rooms talking to communities. But you can also add your family and friends as like one-on-one direct messages, so that
Yep.
it's not a big room of everybody. No, it's literally a one-to-one scenario. So like in the iMessage case, where you're sitting there talking to somebody directly, it's the same thing, and it works the exact same way. I mean, like, you get down to the phone and you just go into the room that's for that one person, and it looks exactly like an iMessage chat between somebody else. One thing that I do love a lot better than iMessage, though, and man, I wish I knew how to like communicate this message a little bit better, though, is that in the world of iMessage and SMS, which it's amazing that in 2022 we're still talking about SMS, but in the iMessage SMS world, you can end up in these group chats. Group chats are pretty awful because you start getting 20 plus people in a group chat, and up at the top of the screen you've got 9 phone numbers or so plus 20 others. Maybe there's a
Hmm.
name or two here or there, but you don't have everybody in your contacts that's gotten added to this massive group chat. And everybody's just going back and forth, and the whole thing's just going ding, 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 ding the whole time. And it's like, this is a matrix room. because then you bring everybody into the matrix room. You set your notifications to only alert you when your name or keyword has been
Yes.
mentioned. And then it's not going ding, 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 and you can come back and see where the chat was and you can get it all in one place. It's like that. We got to kick group chat to the curb. That really ought to be a matrix room.
That is the thing that has helped me keep my sanity with being a part of all these open source communities. And I look at some of the matrix rooms that I'm
Hmm.
in or bridged rooms that I'm in. And there's anywhere from 200 to 2,000 people in these rooms,
Yeah.
and it doesn't do you much good to just set no notifications on a room, because then you don't know if someone's talking about your thing or if they're talking about
Hmm.
you, and so you're kind of stuck in between here. But with Element as your client, you've got all these notifications you can set up to have it tag if someone says your name. Or in a lot of the rooms, I have things like RHEL and Red Hat Enterprise Linux
Yeah.
marked
Yeah. You
so
can
that
add
I get notified
keywords
if
to
someone's
the
talking
rooms,
about
and
my
it's
my
great.
products. It's amazing.
Hmm. Yeah, so you get notified when you need to be notified, and not when you don't need to be notified, just because
Right.
everybody's saying +1 to this great idea in this group text.
Right.
But yeah, can you tell I don't like getting into group texts?
I'll be sure
But
to bring you into a few more. Except they're all on Matrix, so that
yeah,
eliminates that
yeah.
issue.
Well, yeah, Matrix is not a problem. It's just an issue with the old SMS platform and the fact that there's no idea of like a notification control. I mean, it's either you get it or you don't. It's an all or nothing. But that is but I mean, and then we've got work. So at Element, we work on Element. No surprise. We dog food our own product in that regard. We're constantly in Element rooms, and what it does mean is that we don't really use email. That was a
Hmm.
culture shock. Red Hat is an email powerhouse. You've got to be an email power user to survive your first week at Red Hat.
Oh, you're selling Red Hat short, man. We love all the platforms.
That's another part of the problem. Overabundance of platforms. He's not wrong, and I don't want to. I'm not trying to knock Red Hat, but Red Hat has a number of chat platforms in addition to email, and that means that you've got 5, 6, 7 places that you can look to see what in the world am I supposed to tackle next. Who was talking to me, what's important, and it gets that's a lot of places to have to go check for stuff. And Red Hat does love email. There's no doubt about that. And what I found when I came over to Element was that my email box wasn't filling up hardly at all, that I just wasn't getting emails. Everything was a chat in a room. And it makes sense because it's what Element's product is.
Hmm.
And it makes sense that you would use your own product in that way. And I expected to have heavy use of the Element product coming to Element, but it was a culture shock to go from being really good with email to no more email. It's like, whoa, how do you do that? Wow. And the answer is it actually works pretty well. It's you have less places to check because
Hmm.
now I just have to check my Element client. Now, am I in a bunch of rooms? Yes. And every morning that I come in, I probably got 20, 30 rooms that I have to go look at. And some of those I read more than others. Some of
Hmm.
them I just read like last minute. Oh, okay, next, next. Some of them have people telling me I need to do things because it is a European based company. They're based out of London. And so I'm based here in North Carolina on the east coast of the United States. When I get up and get started, it's lunchtime back at headquarters. So they've had half a day on me already. So I come in and I get to see what have people been reading about, and also sometimes I leave messages before I leave for my day, hoping that the next day I come in they'll be answered and I can make
Right.
progress and that type of thing. But yeah, I mean, what happens in Element that's different from email is that an email client, your email client is going to get all these replies in, and depending on your client and depending on how you set it up, depends on how they're going to display and how you're going to get it. We've all seen that ungodly email thread where it's got like what 20 arrows across, and you're trying to read this line that's been wrapped a couple of times, and you're like, "That's the bit I actually need to read, not all the stuff that's out here, but I
Yeah.
need to get this bit, or I need to understand this bit before I can understand this, before I can understand this, before I can understand this." And so you get into this idea of having to try and understand what in the world is going on in this email, and there's no guarantee that everybody's going to get the emails in the same order. because I could reply to something that you replied to, but we replied at about the same time. So now there's like two threads, and now somebody replies here, somebody replies here, and now you've got to like put this back together in the morning, and that's painful. In an Element room, it's a chat room, so it goes top to bottom. And when you get in there and you see that, you're seeing that in the exact order that everybody else saw it in. And you're seeing it one time. You're not having to like go, oh, that thing that was quoted all the way over here. No, you're seeing it exactly as it came through in the order that it came through. And you're seeing how people reacted to it, how they responded to it. And there's no question about how it gets put together. I mean, it literally is. These are the events in the room, and here they are on the screen for you. That's exactly it. And that is just so much easier to read than an email thread. And
Hmm.
plus, it's a little bit less likely to get lost because, well, I go to one place.
Right.
So, and I can interact directly with it right there. And everybody sees my interaction at the exact moment that I interact with it. I don't have to send that email out and then it has to go get to all these different people. And then their clients have to refresh and then finally they get to it. No, they see it all right there. Yes, and we do have threads now. It is in beta. There's still a few little bugs here and there that we're ironing out to get it out of beta. It will be out of beta soonish. But yeah, threads make this pretty nice too, because if you're in a big room, and we've got these at work, we've got rooms, 80, 100 people. Even if you've got 20 people in a room, sometimes you end up with like 5 different topics that need to run simultaneously. And effectively,
Hmm.
we could all do that and we could all manage that. And the messages are going like this, but sometimes it gets a little unwieldy. So, being able to reply on a thread and then follow that thread on the side as a separate thing. And then, oh, yeah, I want to read also about that. And now I can follow all the messages about that. It's a nice organizational tool uh, that
Yeah,
helps with that problem.
it's made life a lot easier, especially in some of these tech support rooms that
Hmm.
you've got hundreds of people and you've got like 5 or 6 different active issues being troubleshooted. You've got threads on their way out. You've got emoji reactions.
Yep.
So if you've got a bunch of people plus wanting something, it's not plus one,
Yeah.
plus one, plus one all the way down the screen. Instead, you get
Yeah.
you get these little emoji reactions underneath, which
Hmm.
there's so
Yeah,
much you
that's
can do with
fantastic.
that.
The emoji reactions are fun. We have a lot of fun with
They're
that.
fun.
And there's also, is it colon to da? What's the party popper? If you
Oh
make the
yeah,
party
someone.
popper as just like the only thing that you put in the entire thing, it's colon to da, enter, and then boom, confetti pops all across the Element room, which is pretty cool. We like that. And then I think if you do colon fireworks and then you put a message, it'll put your message out there and fireworks erupt in the room too at the same time. There's a couple of little things like that that are in the interface that are kind of neat. I don't know if they're Element specific or if they're part of the spec. I'd have to go check, but
Hmm.
yeah, you can do them in Element.
Yeah, the colon to die. I just tried out in our in this show's Matrix room, which
Oh yeah.
if you haven't joined it yet, go on over to hashtag Office of the IT Guy /matrix.org, and I got the fireworks as well.
Yeah,
In
you
fact,
did. You got the fireworks. I didn't get the fireworks. I'm sitting here trying to do it. I'm like, what did I do about the fireworks?
yeah, I think it's colon fireworks, and I actually got the little
Yeah.
the syntax box that tells me what it was.
Oh, there it
So
is.
that
Yeah,
was
you have
really
to
nice.
do. Oh,
Oh.
it doesn't like me right now. Oh well.
But and
Slash
then there's
fireworks. Yes,
there it
thank
is.
you. That's it. It's slash fireworks and
And
slash confetti. I'll do it.
then the client's adding even more stuff like there's polls
Yeah, we
and
have
like
polls already, which polls is great. That's a phenomenal function because you can just pop in your thoughts. If you've got to make a decision in a room, hey room, here's 3 things,
mhm.
everybody vote. So
Which is
I think
even an advantage over like when I was at GitLab before Red Hat, we depended very heavily on Slack,
mhm.
and so to do polls then. Uh, whoever wrote the question would then put a plus sign and a minus sign underneath their question as an emoji, and you just go in and
Okay, yep,
upvote the
yep,
emojis. But
yeah,
having the actual polls just makes it so much
yeah.
easier. Especially, I
Well, and
imagine
location
from
sharing. We've
there. Yeah,
got
go ahead.
privacy centric locations sharing, which is like an oxymoron,
Uh huh.
but it's in there and it's actually like the first location sharing on any platform that I've been like, I could actually use that. And the rationale behind it is what happens in a location sharing scenario? Well, in a location sharing scenario, your location is embedded into a matrix message, and that is in the room. Because a room is end to end encrypted, and because usually in a location sharing scenario, I mean, you could be sharing it with a lot of people, but you're probably only sharing it with one or two people, or maybe a few close friends, but you're going to have a fairly limited scope room that you would be doing this in. I'm not going to go into the Silver Blue project and share my location. That would be a silly scenario. You don't want to do that. I probably could, but you don't want to do that. So you're going to be in one of these small rooms where you have a level of trust with the people that you're sending this data to. Well, the only thing that actually goes across is that location data. So basically latitude, longitude of the point of where you're at. You can then, what happens to generate the map is it has to go to a map tiler service, which is a third party service. But in this case, we actually have a privacy respecting map tiler service. And if you don't like that, you can actually, there's a way that you can edit the config JSON in the element client to use a different map tiler.
Hmm.
So if you don't like our map tiler, you can go, I don't like your map tiler. I'm going to make my own map tiler and I'm going to do that myself. You could do it because the only thing that goes across a matrix is the actual location bit, and then the element client establishes a secure connection with that map tiler to be able to actually then bring you the map. So it's, I mean, from a standpoint of like keeping this private and keeping this secure and keeping this out of the, it's really well done. And there was a whole blog about how they did that. And it's pretty exciting stuff because that is another thing that's really a big piece of Matrix is that private privacy is a fundamental human right.
Mm-hmm.
That's a UN statement even, but that's a big thing. And so we wanted to design a protocol that was open and allowed for open communications because that was really the key thing first. But as part of that, making it open and putting in all these controls, it's also an excellent privacy protocol where you can have private communications over that protocol. Well, Tyler Brown could set up his own map, Tyler, and then configure Element to
Oh
use
gosh.
it.
Oh, please don't encourage him. We have a naming problem as it is in the open source world.
Oh, yes, we do. There's all sorts of fun names in the open source world. You're right.
Yeah, so I mean, Carl has been an enabler for me in good ways and in bad because when I talked about doing the show, I don't think Element Call was quite where what it is now. So
Mhm.
we're using a third party tool called Restream. It's proprietary. It's subscription
Yep.
based. But my hope is as the
It's
show
very fancy.
progresses, I mean, it looks great. It gives me everything I need, but the problem is it's just us in the room, and I don't
Yep.
even have the official Matrix room bridge to the show yet.
Mhm.
So I'm like having to copy and paste stuff between a couple of different platforms. But as the show progresses, I would love to set up a situation where folks that join a guest and myself live could all be in the
Mhm.
same room. We can all share the same chats, and then we could have like a post show where we open up the rest of everybody's mics, and we can just kind of sit around and chat. I mean,
Well, in that post show, we're starting video rooms.
oh, well, there you
Where
go.
if you're familiar with Discord's video rooms, we've got a copy of that in a sense. We're going to have video rooms on Matrix, and Element has experimental support for it in Element Web. I think if you're on develop.element.io, which is probably the fastest way to get on the nightly builds, just go to develop.element.io and sign in with an Open Federation account. You'll be fine. But if you're on there, you can enable labs, and in
Hmm.
labs, there's a way to enable that video room. And effectively, it's pretty much you go to the. I saw a demo of it. I haven't actually played with it yet, but you go to the room, you get a preview of what the room looks like. Who's on the video, so you can determine do I want to join this or not, and then you click a button, and then bam, you're in, and you can then like you're talking about your post-show hangout type thing. That would be, and when we do things like when we host FOSDEM on the Matrix platform with Element as the front end, we definitely had rooms where people would get together. They'd have to join a Jitsi conference, so you'd have to actually join in before you could see, is this a room I really want to be in? Are these people I really want to talk to? But with the video room, you've got the ability to actually, see that before you make that join. But yeah, there were plenty of rooms where you could just go hang out with people and literally just sit on a Jitsi call and talk shop. So it was really cool. It's a
So
really cool
let's double
experience.
click on that really quick. You mentioned FOSDEM. I don't
Hmm.
want to blow past that. Are you telling me that Element and Matrix are powerful enough to do a virtual conference?
Oh yeah, yeah. We've done FOSDEM, and then there's one in the Pacific Northwest, Seattle Linux users. I
Hmm.
can't remember what the acronym is for that one, but I do remember watching, saying, yeah, there's actually a couple of talks I want to go see in that particular one, and hey, it's on Matrix. So basically, I just logged into their Element, added the space to my account, then I went back to my Element, and lo and behold, the space is there. So I just go in, browse to the space, and then when you're ready to go to a talk, there's a particular room for the talk. You go to the room for the talk. You join the video widget that's in the room, and then you can sit there and chat to people while the talk goes on, and you can watch the talk. So it's a pretty compelling platform for a conference standpoint. And they've got things like a hallway track, so there's a room where you can just go chat with people and see what's going on and see who all's there. And you do get some of that presence feeling on the platform
Hmm.
doing conferences like that, where you kind of feel like you are part of a group of people participating in the same thing.
Well, we also kind of breezed by widgets, things like
Yes.
Jitsi videos. In fact, we're using, gosh, I forget what it's.
Oh,
We're
we're using the
using
Etherpad widget for our
Etherpad.
show
Thank
notes
you.
right now. Yep.
Yep, yep. And so we've got a green room where guests of the show and I have a private room, and we've got the Etherpad widget set up, and I've got show notes so Carl can drop links in it, and I can copy and paste it for the episode guide. I mean, it's really great.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah. And widgets are a fast expanding part of the Matrix ecosystem. You know what you can do with widgets. We've got things like full screen widgets, being able to maximize a widget, take up more of the room, doing better things with the layouts. And there's a lot of work going on to replace the current scalar integrations manager that's currently out there. And if you're on matrix.org, you've been using scalar. If you go to add integrations, that's going to be replaced with this thing called integrator. And that's going to give us the ability to have more graphical configurations for these things. So there's going to be a lot of nice improvements that are put into that part of the product over the next period of time.
so I managed to collect a couple of questions for you. Uh, First off is from our buddy Tyler again, and he
Hmm.
was talking about one of the cool things he likes about Discord is the ability to have custom emojis, especially since they can sync to his Twitch channel as well. Is that something that Matrix can or will support?
I'm not familiar with that. We have a lot of emojis. We have all the emojis. We have a lot of emojis. Um, you, you can react with an emoji. There is in the spec the ability to react with pretty much anything. So you will see that clients like Fluffy Chat actually allow you to react with words. And if you can react with a word, you could react pretty much with any character sequence that would translate to an emoji map in a font somewhere. So I have to think that if you put your custom emoji in that response on like Fluffy Chat, maybe that would work. It'd be worth a try. But in Element, we've restricted that. Even though it's allowed via the spec, we only allow you to react with an emoji that's either from your iOS operating system, Android operating system, or if you're on Element Web through our custom emoji picker, which has a lot of them in there, but probably not all, and certainly not custom emojis. So, yeah, I don't know how much that is, and it's not something that I would say I see coming, but again, I kind of work on the on-premise side. So I work in getting home servers to work for people at their sites in a way that's repeatable and supportable. And I don't work as much on the client side. So there's definitely a little bit of a divide there.
Awesome. Great answer. Then another question I pulled out of our official Matrix room. Do we have a timeline for Element Call to support more than 8 users?
Soon.
Soon.
As Spoken like a true product manager, right?
Right.
Uh,
I got to use that a lot with Rel 9 up until
yeah,
about a week
soon.
ago.
It's coming soon.
Any
This
day
is
now,
an
I promise.
excellent question. You're absolutely right. We do have an 8-person call. Well, we don't really have an 8-person call limit, but most people don't have a big enough rig to allow more than 8 high-quality direct video connections to somebody else. And that's really it's CPU and memory on your end and your other participants' ends that is the limiting factor. How we get around this is we implement a piece of code called a selective forwarding unit or an SFU, and that is a very high priority item for our element call team to tackle is the implementation of that SFU. I don't have a realistic timeline on when we're going to get that SFU, but I can tell you it's an incredibly high priority item, and they are very much working on that quite a bit. And so soon is right, but how soon I couldn't tell you on that, but it is coming, definitely coming. We definitely recognize that that is something that we need to address. And once we get the SFU, yes, element call should explode because at that point you don't have an 8-person limit anymore.
Nice. Yeah, I love the ability. I mean, even just prepping for this episode. I mean, you and I did a couple of meetings ahead of time, and we did that
Hmm.
in Element, sending files back and forth,
Yep.
sending you screenshots of what some of the graphics were going to look like. I mean, it was just so nice. I had one place to go. Even if we were using some of the widgets like the Etherpad for
Yeah.
the show notes, I mean, it's just it was all built into one place, and especially with show prep, we had a dedicated room for it. I mean, you and I had our one-on-one chat that we're you
Hmm.
and I chat multiple times a week, but when it came down to specific show prep stuff, we could put it in this other room, and we could put a logo on it, give it a name, lock down the permissions, change notifications. It was
Yep.
just so it's so nice. But I mean, that's just you and I prepping for one hour episode.
Hmm.
I mean, blow that up to what you must work with on a daily basis when it comes to developing element for enterprises. So you're talking multi thousands of people that are trying to market, sell, build, QA a thing, and
Hmm.
get it out to customers.
Yeah. Yeah. We certainly use our communications platform for most of our communications. We use GitLab and we use GitHub. Um,
That's something we didn't talk about was you can actually integrate with things like
yes.
GitLab,
Yeah, you
and so you can
can.
get notifications.
There's
I
this
think you
great
can send
widget called
triggers.
Hookshot,
Yep.
and you can get all this stuff to come in and out. And yeah, you can get triggers. I set up Bookstack for Element's knowledge base, and
Ooh,
you know what? I went in there and I went to add a webhook, and I do have a technical background. It is way more in the systems world of things. It's not as much in the website of things. So I went to add this webhook. I'm like, all right, what do I need to do to add a webhook? And it's like, give me a URL from what you're trying to hook into. I'm like, okay, hookshot, register this new thing. Give me a custom web URL thing. It says, okay, here you go. I said, all right, Bookstack, here you go. The next thing I know, I hit 2 buttons apply, and every time I update an article in Bookstack, it goes to this room and I get notified that that got updated. And it's
that's
like,
so cool.
okay, I didn't even really know a lot about how to wire these things together. And I sat down and just clicked some buttons. And the next thing I know, this thing is chatting away in a room telling me when things are happening on this platform. And then
Well,
somebody who knew a lot more about it came through and wrote some custom JavaScript to actually interpret the event a little bit nicer and make it prettier, which was really cool. But yeah, you can do a lot of neat stuff just with custom webhooks straight into an element or into a matrix room, and being able to do that just really expands the potential for the platform.
well, and something fun that I heard or saw the other day that I meant to tell you about. I think it was like it might have been an element conversation, a matrix conversation, but someone has been working with Element and Home Assistant, so
Hmm.
they have a
Yep.
room where they can send text commands and change the lights or change the
Yep.
temperature. And
Yeah.
I'm curious if kind of one of the next steps is using Element's location service to tell your house that you're on your way home and to kick the air conditioner on or something. I mean, just the amount of integrations, the openness
You
of
can do
the.
that.
I mean,
Because it is a
I'm not the one to be
communications
able to do it,
protocol, and
but.
as long as you move messages back and forth,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you can do it. And so if you can hook something that receives messages into a matrix room, any messages that come across that it receives, it's going to act on those. So there's a lot of potential to do a lot of cool things there.
Yeah, I mean, it's the possibilities are really amazing.
Well, we didn't
And
even talk about like all the third room stuff that they're developing on top, where there's gonna be like metaverse type experience in Meta or in
ooh,
Matrix rooms, and there's a lot going on there.
well, I think you just gave me a hook I needed to drag you back for a future episode.
Yeah,
Well,
there's so much going on, and we didn't even talk peer to peer,
this is
which
true.
is exciting as well. Because at the point that you can just get rid of home servers because your home server runs on your local device, and that we're just connecting through mesh networks with folks, that's a pretty exciting future too. Um, I believe arewep2pyet.com is the website to see
Mm,
how far
I
away we
think
are
so.
from peer to peer for Matrix. So that's a fun
There's
one.
some pretty sizable blockers on that list, but
There
a
are,
lot
but
more
we're
green than there
working
were
through
red. Yeah,
them.
I was excited.
We'll get there. We will get there. Kind
Well,
of like the
any
SFU. We will get there. We will have an SFU.
someday.
It's going
So
to be sooner. I mean, it will be sooner rather than later.
so
But
any
we will
closing
get there.
thoughts you want to share with folks?
Matrix is cool. No, I mean, it's been good getting to come and chat with you. I've definitely enjoyed that, and yeah, I mean, like I said, I kind of stumbled into the Matrix ecosystem a few years back, and it's been an exciting ride so far, and I'm really looking forward to where we go, just as Element the company, and then as Matrix the ecosystem. Governed by the foundation to see just how that continues to expand out. There's a tremendous amount of exciting opportunities with this technology. So, very much happy to be a part of it and looking forward to continuing to be a part of it for a while to come.
Well, you and your team are always welcome here in the office. I'm going to have to come up with all these office related puns. You know, I've got Office of the IT Guy, and I got the one good one in the intro video, so I'll have to come up with all kinds of puns. But I guess feel free to drop by the office anytime. I'm a dad, so I can make dad jokes all day long. I've got the children to prove it. But thank you so much, Karl, for coming and helping me kick off the show and letting me nerd out about Element. I even learned a couple of things just as we recorded today. So some features I hadn't heard about, but I'm excited to see what's coming. And in fact, I have a feeling this is going to be a biweekly show. I don't
Okay.
have a set time or set schedule yet, so definitely go out to YouTube or Twitch and subscribe and share, and that way you get notifications when we do schedule a new event. I think I'm going to be doing a combination of interview style, conversation style episodes like this, but also like some live terminal type stuff. I've got a lot of projects in my home lab that I want to do, so I might try
Hmm.
and track down people in the community that know that very well, bring them on, and they can help me set things up and um, some online tech support. but so for the next interview style episode, I actually have he goes by Tib
Oh yeah, Tib's great.
from the Matrix Foundation has agreed
Hmm.
to come on the show and talk a little bit about Matrix and talk a little bit more high level. And
I
then we
think
do
he's
have
also on the GNOME board of directors as well.
I think so too.
Yeah.
And so, a question in the chat: I do plan to release this as an audio podcast as well. I don't have those feeds set up yet, so they'll lag behind a little bit. But I fully plan on having this. Um, I do fully plan on having all the stuff in all the places. Right now, it's just Twitch and YouTube, but I'll probably have this hosted out on my website and also have this hosted out on like PeerTube and some of the other federated decentralized platforms as well. Because I mean, I wouldn't be an open source advocate if I wasn't. But for now, we wanted to record this. We wanted to talk about Matrix and Elements and kind of kick off the show. So all of that will be coming. Definitely join me in the Office of the IT Guy Matrix room. You can catch Karl and myself in there, as well as Tibbs in our room as well. So
Hmm.
get poke him and ask questions. I'm looking forward to having him on one of the next episodes of Office of the IT Guy. But until then, thank you all very much for helping me kick this off. Thank you so much for the questions and the engagement in the chat. And once again, Karl, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me, Eric.
Definitely. And with that said, we'll see you all in a few weeks. Thank you so much.